Daniel Parker watched the stars through the large window of his ship. He had been traveling for 3 months to reach this place. The ship moved slowly through space toward a world that looked like a blue and green marble from far away. This was not Earth. This was Zephyria Prime, home to one of the most powerful alien races in this part of the galaxy. Daniel was 52 years old and had gray hair at his temples. He wore his best formal clothes today because this meeting was very important. He was Earth's ambassador, which meant he spoke for all humans. This was the biggest job of his life. Captain Lisa Morgan sat in her chair on the bridge. She was a good pilot who had flown ships for 20 years. Her hands moved over the controls as she guided their ship closer to the alien world. The ship was called the U.S. Horizon, and it was Earth's newest diplomatic vessel. "Sir, I can see 12 alien ships around us," Lisa said to Daniel. "They are staying close, but their weapons are turned off." "That is a good sign," Daniel nodded. He felt nervous but also excited. For 3 years, humans had been talking to the Zephyrians through long-distance messages. The messages took months to travel between Earth and Zephyria Prime. Now finally, the aliens had invited humans to visit their world in person. Dr. Helen Brooks stood next to Daniel at the window. She was Earth's best scientist for studying alien life. She had read everything humans knew about the Zephyrians. Her eyes were bright with curiosity as she looked at the alien world growing larger ahead of them. "Look at those cities," Helen said. "The buildings look like they are made of crystal. I have never seen anything like them." Commander Jake Sullivan walked over to join them. He was a soldier, but he was chosen for this mission because he stayed calm under pressure. His job was to keep everyone safe, but he hoped they would not need his protection. The team also had 5 other people. Lieutenant Amy Foster had spent 2 years learning the Zephyrian language and customs. Communications Officer Ryan Clark would handle all the messages between the ship and Earth. 2 security guards came along, but they only carried ceremonial weapons as the aliens had requested. Daniel thought about his family back on Earth. His daughter Katie was 25 and studying alien languages at university. His son Ben was 22 and wanted to be an explorer like his father. Daniel hoped this mission would help create a peaceful future for his children and all human children. The Zephyrians controlled 47 star systems. They had advanced technology and powerful weapons. Many smaller alien races respected them and followed their lead. If humans could become friends with the Zephyrians, it would help protect Earth's colonies and open up new areas of space for exploration. "Ambassador, we are getting a message from the planet," Ryan said from his station. "They are telling us where to land. They want us to come down in their capital city." "How many people live in that city?" Daniel asked. "Our scans show about 50 million, Helen replied. "The buildings are huge. Some of them reach up into the clouds." Lisa guided the ship into orbit around Zephyria Prime. The planet was beautiful, with purple oceans and silver continents. 2 suns shone down on the world, making everything look bright and colorful. The alien cities looked like jewels scattered across the landscape. Daniel had negotiated peace treaties with 17 different alien species during his career. But none of those meetings had been as important as this one. The Zephyrians were different from the other aliens humans had met. They were stronger, smarter, and more advanced. "Sir, the aliens are sending us an escort," Lisa announced. 6 of their ships are coming to guide us down to the planet. Through the window, Daniel could see the alien ships approaching. They were sleek and elegant, with smooth curves instead of the angular designs humans preferred. The ships seemed to glow with their own inner light. Amy Foster had been studying the cultural files one more time. "Remember, the Zephyrians value strength and honesty," she said. "They do not like people who seem weak or who try to hide things. But they also have very formal ceremonies for important meetings." "What should we expect when we land?" Jake asked. "They We'll probably have thousands of people there to watch, Amy replied. This is the first time humans have ever visited their world. It is a big moment in their history, too. Daniel felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Millions of humans lived in colonies scattered across dozens of worlds. If this meeting went badly, those people might be in danger. But if it went well, humanity could gain powerful allies and learn amazing new technologies. The shuttle bay opened and their smaller ship was prepared for the journey down to the planet's surface. Daniel had chosen 8 people to go with him to the meeting. They would leave the rest of the crew on the U.S. horizon in orbit. Are you ready, Ambassador? Lisa asked. Daniel took one last look at the stars. Somewhere out there, millions of light years away, Earth was spinning around its yellow sun. His family was there, along with 10 billion other humans who were counting on him to make the right choices. Yes, he said firmly, let us go make history. The shuttle launched from the U.S. horizon and began its descent toward the alien world. Daniel watched through the window as they dropped through the purple atmosphere. The alien cities grew larger and more detailed. He could see crowds of people gathering in the streets and plazas. Soon they would meet the Zephyrians face to face. Daniel hoped this would be the beginning of a beautiful friendship between 2 great civilizations. He had no way of knowing that in just a few days, everything would go terribly wrong. The shuttle touched down on a large flat area made of smooth white stone. Daniel Parker looked out the window and saw thousands of alien beings waiting for them. The Zephyrians stood in perfect rows, their skin shining like rainbows in the light. Of their 2 sons, Daniel stepped out of the shuttle first. The air felt warm and smelled like flowers he had never encountered before. The gravity was lighter than Earth, making each step feel like he was bouncing slightly. Behind him came Dr. Helen Brooks, Commander Jake Sullivan, and the rest of his team. The alien city stretched out in all directions around them. The buildings were tall and made of crystal that sparkled in the sunlight. Some of the structures twisted up into the sky like frozen tornadoes. Others spread out wide like giant flowers. Daniel had never seen anything so beautiful. A tall alien figure walked toward them. She was 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin that changed colors as she moved. She wore robes that seemed to shift between blue and purple and gold. This was High Chancellor Vex Thara, the leader of the Zephyrian Empire. Ambassador Parker of Earth, she said through a small device that translated her words into English. Her voice sounded like music mixed with the sound of wind chimes. The Zephyrian Empire welcomes you to our homeworld. Daniel bowed in the way Amy Foster had taught him. High Chancellor, it is an honor to stand on your beautiful world. I bring greetings from all the people of Earth. The ceremony was magnificent. Zephyrian musicians played instruments that made sounds like singing crystals. Dancers moved through the air using some kind of technology that let them float and spin. Children threw flower petals that glowed and disappeared before they hit the ground. Daniel presented gifts from Earth. He gave the High Chancellor paintings by famous artists, books of poetry and stories, and recordings of human music from different countries and time periods. The aliens looked at everything with great interest. In return, the Zephyrians gave the humans crystal sculptures that hummed with beautiful music. They also presented star maps showing parts of the galaxy that humans had never seen before. One gift was a small device that could translate between dozens of alien languages. Dr. Helen Brooks was fascinated by everything she saw. The Zephyrians seemed to grow their technology instead of building it. Their computers looked like living plants made of metal and crystal. Their vehicles moved without any visible engines. How do your ships fly? Helen asked one of the Zephyrian scientists. We ask the fabric of space to carry us, the alien replied. Your species uses force to push through space. We use harmony to flow with it. Commander Jake Sullivan watched the alien guards with professional interest. They carried weapons that looked like works of art, with smooth curves and glowing parts. He noticed that the aliens moved with perfect coordination, like they could read each other's minds. The formal talks took place in a huge round room called the Grand Council Chamber. The ceiling showed moving pictures of stars and galaxies. The floor was made of crystal that felt warm under their feet. Holographic displays showed maps and charts floating in the air. For 3 days, Daniel and his team worked to create an agreement between Earth and the Zephyrian Empire. They talked about trade, sharing knowledge, and protecting each other from enemies. The negotiations went very well. Both sides seemed to want the same things. The Zephyrians were impressed by human determination and creativity. They were interested in Earth's art, music, and literature. They also respected how humans had survived and grown strong despite having no natural advantages like telepathy or advanced technology. Daniel was impressed by Zephyrian wisdom and their peaceful philosophy. They had ended wars between dozens of alien species by helping them understand each other better. Their empire was built on cooperation rather than conquest. On the 4th day, everything changed. Daniel was explaining Earth's proposal for joint exploration missions when loud alarms began ringing throughout the building. The crystal walls flashed with red warning lights. Zephyrian guards rushed into the chamber with their weapons glowing and ready to fire. "What is happening?" Daniel asked, standing up slowly with his hands where everyone could see them. "Hi." Chancellor Vexthara's friendly expression disappeared. Her skin turned dark red, which Amy Foster recognized as a sign of anger among Zephyrians. "We have discovered your deception, Ambassador Parker. I do not understand," Daniel said. "What deception?" "Our intelligence networks have intercepted human military communications," Vexthara announced. "Your species has been planning an invasion of our territory while pretending to negotiate peace." Daniel felt his heart sink. "That is impossible, High Chancellor. I have direct communication with Earth Command. There are no military operations planned in this region of space." But the Zephyrians showed evidence on their holographic displays. The images showed what looked like human battle fleets gathering at the edge of Zephyrian space. There were tactical discussions about attack plans and target selections. The data even included Earth military codes that looked genuine. Dr. Helen Brooks stepped forward carefully. "High Chancellor, please allow us to contact our government. There must be some kind of mistake or misunderstanding." "The evidence is clear," Vexthara replied coldly. "Humans speak of peace while preparing for war. We will not be caught defenseless by your treachery." Commander Jake Sullivan studied the intercepted communications on the displays. Something felt wrong about them. The military structure and planning methods did not match how Earth's forces actually operated. But the encryption codes and communication signatures looked authentic. "High Chancellor, I have served in Earth's military for 20 years, Jake said. "These intercepts show tactical errors that our commanders would never make. Someone may be trying to deceive both of our species." "Enough lies," Vexthara declared. "Guards, arrest these spies." Zephyrian soldiers surrounded the human delegation. Their weapons hummed with energy that made the air smell like lightning. Daniel realized that their peaceful mission had somehow become a deadly trap. As the guards led them away, Daniel caught sight of Lieutenant Amy Foster's frightened face. She had worked so hard to learn Zephyrian culture and language. Now all her efforts seemed wasted. The humans were taken to a secure facility deep underground. The walls were made of some kind of metal that blocked all their communication devices. They were prisoners on an alien world, accused of crimes they had not committed. Daniel sat in his cell and tried to understand what had gone wrong. Someone had planted false evidence to make the Zephyrians think Earth was planning to attack them. But who would do such a thing, and why? Outside their prison, he could hear the sounds of the Zephyrian military preparing for war against Earth. The prison was cold and dark. Daniel Parker sat on a hard metal bench in his cell, staring at the glowing bars that kept him trapped. The other members of his team were in cells nearby. They had been prisoners for 2 days now, and no one would listen to their protests of innocence. Commander Jake Sullivan was working frantically in the cell next to Daniel's. He had found a way to access some of the intercepted communications on a small device the guards had missed. His military training told him something was very wrong with the evidence. "Ambassador," Jake whispered through the bars, "I have been studying these intercepts all night. The tactical formations are completely wrong. Earth Command would never position battle groups like this." "What do you mean?" Daniel asked quietly. "Look at this," Jake said, holding up the device. "These intercepts show our fleets operating without supply ships or repair facilities. No real military commander would send forces into hostile territory without logistical support. It is basic strategy." Dr. Helen Brooks heard them talking from her cell across the corridor. "There is something else strange," she said. "I have been listening to the guards talking. They mention other alien species moving in this region. The Korthax have been very active lately." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. The Korthak Dominion was one of the most dangerous civilizations in known space. They were masters of deception and electronic warfare. Instead of fighting their enemies directly, they preferred to manipulate other species into destroying each other. Lieutenant Amy Foster had been monitoring Zephyrian communications using her language skills. "Ambassador, I heard something important. Today, the guards were discussing recent attacks on Zephyrian colonies by unknown forces. Several planets have been raided in the past few months." "The Korthax," Daniel said with growing certainty. "They must be behind this. They hacked our communication networks and created fake military transmissions. Then they made sure the Zephyrians would find them." Jake nodded grimly. "It makes perfect sense. The Korthax want to expand into this region of space, but both humans and Zephyrians are in their way. If they can make us fight each other, they can claim the territory after we destroy ourselves." Dr. Helen Brooks pressed her face against the bars of her cell. "We have to make the Zephyrians understand. If the Korthax are manipulating both our species, then we are all in terrible danger." Daniel called out to the guards, but they ignored him. He had been demanding to speak with High Chancellor Vexthara for 2 days, but his requests were always refused. The Zephyrians had made up their minds about human treachery, and they were not interested in hearing excuses. On the 3rd day, the guards came with terrible news. Daniel was brought to a small room where High Chancellor Vexthara waited with several other Zephyrian officials. Her skin was still the dark red color of anger, and her 4 eyes stared at him with cold hatred. "Ambassador Parker," she said through her translator, "the Zephyrian Council has reached a decision about you and your fellow spies." "High Chancellor, please listen to me," Daniel begged. "We are not spies. We came here in peace. Someone is trying to turn our species against each other." "The evidence against your people is overwhelming," Vexthara replied. "Your military fleets are already moving toward our border worlds. Our intelligence shows that the attack will begin within days." Daniel felt his heart racing. What attack? There are no human fleets moving anywhere. "Please, just allow me to contact Earth. We can prove our innocence." "The time for lies has ended," the High Chancellor declared. "You and your team will be executed tomorrow at dawn. Your deaths will be broadcast across Zephyrian space as a warning to other human infiltrators." "You are making a terrible mistake," Daniel said desperately. "The Korthax are the real enemy. They want us to destroy each other so they can take control of this entire region." But Vexthara was not listening. She had already turned away and was walking toward the door. "Guards, return the prisoner to his cell. Make sure he understands that any attempt to escape will result in immediate death." That night, Daniel lay on the cold floor of his cell and thought about his family. His daughter Katie would be finishing her studies soon. His son Ben would be applying to the Space Academy. Would they ever know the truth about what happened here? He thought about the crew of the U.S. Horizon, still waiting in orbit above the planet. Captain Lisa Morgan would be trying to contact Earth for help, but the messages would take months to reach home. By then, it would be too late. Jake Sullivan was still working on the intercepted communications. "Ambassador, I found something important," he whispered. "The fake transmissions contain information about Zephyrian defensive positions that only the Cortex would know. This proves they are behind the deception." "Can you show this to the guards?" Daniel asked. "I tried. They will not look at any evidence that contradicts their beliefs. They think we are just making more lies to save ourselves." Dr. Helen Brooks had been very quiet all day. Finally, she spoke from her cell. "I have been thinking about something. The Zephyrian scientist told me during our first day here. He said their species values truth above all else. But they have been deceived just like us." "What do you mean?" Daniel asked. "The Cortex did not just fake our military communications," Helen explained. "They probably also provided the Zephyrians with false intelligence about human intentions. They made both sides believe the other was planning to attack." Lieutenant Amy Foster suddenly sat up in her cell. "That explains why the Zephyrians seem so certain about human aggression. They think they have multiple sources of evidence, but it all comes from the same place." Daniel realized the full scope of the Corthic plan. It was brilliant and evil at the same time. By feeding false information to both sides, they had created a situation where war seemed inevitable. The Zephyrians believed they were defending themselves against human treachery. Meanwhile, Earth would think the Zephyrians had murdered their diplomats without cause. The guards allowed Daniel to make one final recording before his execution. He sat in front of a camera, knowing that his words would eventually reach Earth, even if they arrived too late to save his life. "To my family, to President Collins, to all of humanity," he began, his voice steady despite his fear. "We came to this world seeking peace and friendship. We found only suspicion and hatred, created by enemies who hide in the shadows." He paused, thinking carefully about his next words. "Do not let our deaths be meaningless. Find the truth about what happened here. Protect our people from those who would destroy us through deception. And remember that not all species in this galaxy wish us harm." The recording ended. Tomorrow, Ambassador Daniel Parker and his entire team would die for crimes they did not commit. The war between humans and Zephyrians would begin, exactly as the Cortex had planned. But Daniel hoped that someday, someone would uncover the truth and prevent other species from falling into the same deadly trap. President Marcus Collins sat in the Oval Office at 3 in the morning. The emergency message from space had woken him from sleep, and now he stared at the screen in horror. The poor quality video showed Ambassador Daniel Parker speaking his final words before his execution. Fleet Admiral Catherine Hayes stood next to the president's desk. She was 60 years old, with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen too many wars. Her hands were clenched into fists as she watched the recording for the 4th time. "Ma'am, our intelligence division has finished analyzing the evidence," said Director Paul Martinez. He was a thin man with tired eyes who had spent his whole career fighting enemies in the shadows. "The intercepted communications that the Zephyrians used against our people are fake. The electronic signatures match known Corthic cyber warfare techniques." Secretary of State Victoria Lang paced back and forth across the room. She was younger than the others and still believed in solving problems through talking rather than fighting. "Mr. President, we must try to contact the Zephyrians immediately. If we can prove the Cortex deceived them, we might prevent a war." Admiral Hayes shook her head. "Ma'am, it is too late for talking. Our deep space monitoring stations are detecting massive Zephyrian fleet movements. They have over 200 warships heading toward our border colonies. They plan to attack us first. President Collins walked to the window and looked out at the White House gardens. His own children played there every weekend. His daughter Emma was only 8 years old. His son David was 12. The thought of alien warships threatening human children made his blood burn with anger. How many civilians are in danger? He asked quietly. 2.3 million people across 12 colonies, Admiral Hayes replied. New Austin has 800,000 people. Liberty Station has 500,000. The farming communities in the Centauri system have nearly 1 million civilians. Collins turned back to face his advisors. He had been president for 6 years and had always tried to solve problems peacefully. He had negotiated trade agreements with friendly aliens and settled disputes between human colonies without violence. But this was different. Mr. President, Admiral Hayes continued, Captain Lisa Morgan on the Hughes Horizon is still in orbit around Zephyria Prime. She managed to record the entire execution. The aliens broadcast it across their empire as a warning to other humans. Collins felt his anger growing stronger. Ambassador Parker had been a good man who believed in peace between species. He had 2 children who would never see their father again. Dr. Helen Brooks had 3 grandchildren. Commander Jake Sullivan had been decorated for saving civilian lives during the Titan colony disaster. Show me the fleet positions, Collins ordered. Admiral Hayes activated a holographic display that filled the center of the room. Hundreds of dots represented ships moving through space. Red dots showed Zephyrian forces advancing toward human territory. Blue dots showed human ships scattered across dozens of systems. Our forces are spread thin because we never expected this attack, Hayes explained. We have been focused on exploration and protecting trade routes. The Zephyrians have concentrated their entire military for this assault. Director Martinez pointed to several areas on the display. Sir, we also have reports of Korthik ships moving into neutral territory. They are positioning themselves to claim systems that we and the Zephyrians will abandon during our flight. The whole thing is a setup, Victoria Lang said angrily. The Korthaks manipulated both sides into this war so they could expand their territory without fighting for it. President Collins studied the display for several minutes. He thought about Ambassador Parker's final message and the request to protect humanity from those who would destroy them through deception. He thought about the millions of innocent people living on the border colonies who had no way to defend themselves. Admiral Hayes, what is the current status of our military forces? Sir, we have 150 combat ships ready for immediate deployment. Another 200 vessels could be converted from civilian use within 2 weeks. Our shipyards are already working at maximum capacity, but we could increase production if we shift to wartime manufacturing. Collins made his decision. He walked to his desk and activated the emergency broadcast system that would carry his words to every human world in known space. Cameras focused on him as he prepared to address 10 billion people. My fellow citizens, he began, his voice calm but filled with determination. I speak to you tonight with a heavy heart. Our diplomatic mission to the Zephyrian Empire has ended. In tragedy, he paused and looked directly into the camera. Ambassador Daniel Parker and 7 other brave souls traveled to an alien world carrying humanity's hope for peace. They were murdered in cold blood by aliens who chose to believe lies over truth. The president's voice grew stronger as he continued. The Zephyrian Empire has declared us their enemies based on false evidence created by our real enemies, the Korthik Dominion. Now Zephyrian fleets are moving to attack our colonies and threaten our families. Admiral Hayes stepped forward as Collins reached the most important part of his speech. Therefore, by the authority given to me by the United Earth Constitution, I hereby declare a state of total war against the Zephyrian Empire and any who ally with them. We will defend our colonies, protect our people, and ensure that Ambassador Parker's sacrifice is not forgotten. The broadcast ended, but the president's words echoed across human space. Within minutes, reserve military units were being activated. Civilian factories began switching their production lines to make weapons and warships. Millions of people volunteered to join the military. Admiral Hayes left the White House and traveled immediately to the Luna Naval Base. Her flagship, the U.S. Retribution, was the most powerful warship ever built by humans. It was 5 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. Captain Nick Turner met the admiral at the airlock. He was young for a ship captain, only 38 years old, but his tactical skills had earned him command of the Navy's newest dreadnought. Admiral, all battle groups are reporting ready for deployment. We have 300 ships assembled and more arriving every hour. What is our intelligence on Zephyrian capabilities? Hayes asked as they walked toward the bridge. Their ships are larger than ours, and they have better energy shields, Turner replied. But our analysis shows they rely too heavily on traditional combat tactics. They expect enemies to fight the same way they do. Admiral Hayes smiled grimly. Humans had learned warfare through thousands of years of fighting each other. Every human military officer studied the great generals and admirals of history. They understood that victory belonged to those who could adapt fastest and strike where the enemy least expected. Captain Turner, prepare Operation Righteous Fury. All stealth squadrons are to begin infiltration runs immediately. I want their communication networks destroyed before they realize we have arrived. The human war machine was awakening, and Admiral Hayes intended to show the aliens what happened when they murdered human diplomats and threatened human children. The Zephyrians had chosen war over peace, and now they would face the full fury of humanity's response. Admiral Catherine Hayes stood on the bridge of the U.S. Retribution as it moved through space toward the Zephyrian border. Around her ship, 300 human warships flew in perfect formation. The largest fleet in human history was going to war. Captain Nick Turner worked at his control station, coordinating the movements of dozens of battle groups. Each group had been given specific targets to attack. The humans would not fight the way the Zephyrians expected. Admiral, all stealth. Squadrons report successful infiltration, announced Commander Sandra Wells from the intelligence station. The enemy sensor networks have been blinded in 17 key systems. Hayes nodded with satisfaction. While the Zephyrians had been preparing for a traditional battle, human stealth ships had slipped deep into their territory. These small, fast vessels carried advanced technology that made them nearly invisible to alien sensors. The stealth ships had spent weeks mapping Zephyrian defenses and finding weak points. They destroyed communication relays, sensor arrays, and supply depots. By the time the main human fleet arrived, the Zephyrians would be fighting blind and confused. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Rodriguez led the assault on Zephyrian Station Omega-7. This military base controlled the approaches to 3 major Zephyrian worlds. If the humans could capture it, they would have a clear path to the alien heartland. Remember your training, Marines, Rodriguez spoke to her troops as their assault pods approached the station. These aliens killed our diplomats. They chose war when we offered peace. Today we show them what humans do to those who threaten our families. The boarding action was swift and devastating. Human Marines moved through the station corridors with deadly precision. Their advanced armor protected them from Zephyrian energy weapons while their kinetic rifles punched through alien shields like they were made of paper. The Zephyrians had never faced an enemy like humans before. Most spacefaring species fought with energy weapons and relied on shields for protection. Humans used physical projectiles that moved at incredible speeds. Their bullets could not be stopped by the same shields that deflected laser beams. Within 2 hours, Station Omega-7 was under human control. Rodriguez stood in the command center and watched her engineers connect human computers to the alien systems. Soon they would have access to all Zephyrian military communications in this sector. Meanwhile, the main battle fleet engaged Zephyrian forces in the Proxima Defense Zone. High Admiral Zethkaran commanded the alien fleet from his flagship, High Glory. He had fought in dozens of battles and considered himself one of the greatest military minds in Zephian history. All ships maintain defensive formation, Zethkaran ordered his fleet. The humans will try to overwhelm us with superior numbers, but our shields and weapons are more advanced than theirs. But the humans did not attack the way Zethkaran expected. Instead of flying directly at the Zephyrian ships, they spread out in complex patterns. Some human vessels launched clouds of small missiles that swarmed toward the alien fleet like angry insects. Captain Jennifer Stone commanded the destroyer UES Vengeance in the thick of the fighting. Her ship had been named in honor of Dr. Helen Brooks, and Stone felt the weight of that responsibility as she maneuvered through the chaos of battle. Target their command ship, Admiral Hayes ordered across the fleet communication network. Break their coordination and the rest will crumble. The Zephyrian flagship High Glory was a magnificent vessel 3 kilometers long. Its crystalline hull reflected weapon impacts and beautiful displays of light. But beauty could not protect it from the concentrated firepower of 30 human warships. Zethkaran watched in horror as his shields failed under the relentless bombardment. Human weapons were different from anything he had encountered before. They used mass and velocity instead of energy, making them impossible to deflect with conventional defenses. All ships retreat to secondary positions, he ordered desperately. But it was too late. The High Glory exploded in a brilliant flash of light, taking the Zephyrian admiral with it. Without their commander, the alien fleet began to fall apart. Human tactics confused and overwhelmed them. Ships that had never been defeated in battle found themselves outmaneuvered and destroyed by smaller, faster human vessels. The pattern repeated itself across 12 different star systems. Wherever Zephyrian forces tried to make a stand, human fleets appeared and destroyed them with devastating efficiency. The aliens had expected a war of slow sieges and formal battles. Instead, they faced lightning-fast strikes that gave them no time to respond. Admiral Hayes received reports from all fronts as the UES Retribution approached Zephyria Prime itself. The human fleet had swept aside every defensive position between the border and the alien homeworld. Admiral, we are detecting massive civilian evacuations from the planet's surface, reported Commander Wells. It appears the Zephyrian government is preparing to abandon their capital. Hayes studied the tactical display showing the positions of her ships around the alien world. She thought about Ambassador Daniel Parker and his final message. He had asked humanity to remember that not all species wish them harm, but he had also asked them to protect human lives. Open a communication channel to the planet, Hayes ordered. High Chancellor Vexthara appeared on the main screen. Her skin had turned pale blue, which human intelligence recognized as a sign of fear among Zephyrians. Behind her, the crystal buildings of her capital city were dark and empty. I am Admiral Catherine Hayes of the United Earth Navy, Hayes announced. Your fleets have been destroyed. Your defenses have fallen. I offer you one chance to surrender and end this war. We will never surrender to human invaders, Vexthara replied, but her voice shook with uncertainty. Then you misunderstand the situation, Hayes said calmly. We are not invaders. We are the consequence of your actions. You murdered our diplomats and threatened our people. This is our response. She paused and looked directly at the alien leader. However, Ambassador Parker asked us to remember that not all species are our enemies. If you surrender now and help us find the real culprits behind this war, we will show mercy. Vexthara's expression changed as she realized the truth. The Korthiks, she whispered. They provided us with the intelligence about human military movements. They convinced us that your species was preparing to attack. The same way they convinced us that you had murdered our people without cause, Hayes replied. They wanted us to destroy each other so they could claim our territories. The Zephyrian leader looked at the human fleet surrounding her world and understood that resistance was futile. Her empire's greatest military commanders were dead. Her fleets were scattered wreckage floating in space. The humans had demonstrated military capabilities far beyond anything she had imagined. "I surrender," Vexthara said quietly. "The Zephyrian Empire surrenders unconditionally to Earth." Admiral Hayes nodded. "Then together we will hunt down the real enemies who caused this tragedy. The Korthiks will pay for what they have done to both our peoples." As news of the Zephyrian surrender spread across human space, Admiral Hayes began planning the next phase of the war. The aliens who had manipulated two peaceful species into destroying each other would face the combined fury of humanity and their new Zephyrian allies. Ambassador Daniel Parker's sacrifice had not been in vain. His death had awakened the human war machine and forged an alliance that would bring justice to those who traded in deception and death.